Greetings and salutations, Chris.
Hello, fellow young people.
Because I know if I don't say hi to you and I just dive in, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. No good morning, no hello.
Hey, have you noticed? Have you noticed that I've taken the app off? The on the I know that's so random. That was bad. Let me have another sip. The coffee might help. Mm. I am now manually activating the Do Not Disturb While Driving app. I have had such pushback from some of my friends. Like, what is up with this? What is up with this? It's remarkable the number of texts that it sent out on my behalf to people telling them that I'm not available right now because I'm driving, and I will get back to you as soon. I forget what the language is.
It's pretty hardcore. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, is this guy going into surgery? It's like, I can't take your text right now. I'm currently whatever. If it's an emergency, give me a call. I'm like, and okay, and you and I, we're buddies, but I don't think there's ever going to be an emergency where I have to call you because it's an emergency. So I'm like, what? I remember I'm like, what? And then it happened frequently because I guess you were just driving those couple of days a lot. I'm like, what is this guy? Who does this guy think he is?
And I'm on the other side thinking it's a kindness. Like, I'm letting people know, because I'm looking for the point of view of your text is important to me, thus you are important to me, or maybe the other way around. You're important to me, thus your text is important to me, and I will. It was a contract. I will get back in touch with you as soon as I am no longer, conducting a vehicle down the highway at 100 kilometers an hour, and I don't want to challenge the safety of my children in the back of the car.
Number one.
I'm commuting a lot, right? So it depending on the time of the day, and I'm sure there's something in the gyroscope and the GPS because it measures. I'm imagining how fast the location services, I'm sure, measures where my phone is in space, and is it likely that I'm able to sort of move my body at 75 kilometers an hour. So I had it on automatic. I've turned it off. I'm going to take back my agency. And as I walk to my vehicle, I'm going to turn it on so it's not just on randomly. And I may even leave it off when I'm driving one time and challenge my own sort of self-regulation.
Okay. Number one, you don't always get back to people. Even though the app says you will, you don't. I'm proof of that.
Zing.
Yeah, zing. Number one. Number two, oh, I lost it. Number two, why can't the message say, you're important to me, therefore, like, why? It's so sterile. It's like, I am unavailable right now. I am.
Dude, I'm checking the settings right now.
Okay.
I'm checking.
Like, let it be you. Let it be you. Say, this is a courtesy. You are important to me. And I think I will get back to you someday soon. But right now I'm driving and my kid's safety is important to me. Like, that would be, at least I'd laugh. I'd be like, okay, he's driving. But the sterile thing that comes from Apple is just like,
right. I'm changing it right now. I'm changing right now.
There's no friggin' emergency. That might work for your wife, but that's not going to work for me and some of your other pals.
Okay, I have to figure out what you got to give me. I got to take some time to craft this one. So I'm going to put it back on, and you test drive it sometime today. Chances are I'm driving the kids around, and we'll see.
Okay, sounds
Actually,
good.
Tell you what, send me a text. Send me a text like when we get off the air, because I'm taking the boy to sports, and by that point I'll figure out what I want the auto reply to be. That's cool. Customizing the auto reply.
Why not? Why not? Like what you just said, that's the Chris we know. So just say it. Don't let Apple say it for you.
Everyone's a liar.
Are we really going there?
Nah, let's not. But here's what I will say. I appreciate this feedback tremendously. that you would sort of call out that, because it's also, there's a little comedy in this as well, right? Because I'm going to assume that you wouldn't argue the fact that I shouldn't be playing with my phone while I'm driving.
Oh,
Like I should, right? Hands free, right? Hands free. And if you can't do hands free, don't do anything. Like just drive. We're good there.
Sometimes it happens. People
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Okay, I've done it, but I'm just saying 100% I agree. Put the thing down and
Okay.
focus 100%.
So this is a little bit of what makes this funny, because and you're right. I'm a work in progress as far as getting back to people. I am better. Good old days thing. I used to be very bad at this, and I'm very much trying to find it's because what it has to do with, it has more to do with my forgetfulness, not an actual intention to not connect with people. It is forgetfulness and my distraction. So probably even a better reason why I shouldn't be, even conducting any business on the phone while I'm driving whatsoever. But I like that. I like the call out because it does. I'm not saying that it's a good tool, but I like that that tool is in there so that if someone were thinking, if they had the okay, so I can set that tool, that auto reply, that you can break through it. Like I can put a favorites list together, and I can make a short list of individuals that if they call, they're on that list, it goes through, or if they text, it goes through. There's a couple other little settings in there that you can also, if someone phones you twice from it, the second call goes through. So you can set it so it has a little bit more of a social emotional support layer to it. But I like how you're calling it out for its coldness of response. I think I had not thought of it that way, or customizing the actual response. The second part that I appreciate is a bigger picture item. And it had to do when you called me out for playing with that if this, then that recipe, where I'd found that thing that was tracking. It was a tracker that also thanked people. It was a 2-part recipe where there was an auto response coming out of my Twitter account saying, "Hey, so-and-so, thanks for following me." And as soon as you mentioned that, I'm like, yeah, that's, I got to get rid of it. Irony is that it was really difficult to remove it. There was something happening between my phone and my MacBook. And then I also use a third computer. I don't know if you've ever had this happen with the recipes. You can turn it off on one device, but it's still active somewhere else. Is very strange. Plus you have gaps involved with it, like Google Docs, because it was populating a sheet with a stamp when someone followed me. Anyways, that same call out for being, maybe it reminded me that I'm off track in how I'm using my tools. And I think that's a good thing that you can do with colleagues and friends, is sort of like bringing that to their attention. So I appreciate the zingers. I do.
Well, you see them as zingers. I see them as, okay, if we could look at this from like a marketing perspective with no like emotions attached or anything, I feel like people that do that are just ruining their brand, because it's so impersonal. Like, thank you, John Doe, for following me. And then in brackets, you have John Doe's Twitter handle. Like, I'm like, are you for real? And what kind of life are you living that you can't respond to John Doe and say, "Hey, man, thanks for following me"? Like, I'm sorry, that's my position. I don't have 8 zillion followers, so I don't, like, even if I did, I don't think I would do that. I think it's nonsense, to be honest with you. It's just, and such a sterile message. Like, the second time I saw it come out from your Twitter account, I was like, what's he doing? People are going to be like, this guy's a jerk. He's a bot. He has a bot responding to people. But that's just my perspective. And it's kind of like, when I talk about your brand, I mean, who cares whether you have one or not? But the point is that, people follow you for whatever reason, and then they get a response that's very sterile.
The canned response.
And then, but dude, this is layered, right? Because part of me and who I am is like, who does Clough think he is? Sending out canned responses, number one. And then number two, it 100% doesn't fit with the Chris Clough I know, which then is a dissonance for me. But having said that, I know your intention. Like, I know you're not thinking, oh, because I'm such an important dude, I don't have time. I know you're messing around with things. You're playing with the tech. I get it. It just doesn't. I don't know. When I see that as a total, like, I'm like, is this for real? Does this person talk to anybody? And I've stopped following people like that. My thing with Twitter, as you know, has always been like, if a teacher follows me, I follow them back, because this is how I'm gonna build like capacity in my teaching. This is how I follow so many people that I'm not getting the same feed as the teacher down the hall who might follow 52 people. Like, I'm missing out on stuff actually, right? I'm not getting everything because there's so much flying through and the algorithms pick and choose what I'm gonna see. But if I follow somebody, they follow me, I follow them back, and then I get one of those canned responses, then I'm going to further investigate their Twitter feed. And if that's all I see, I'm out. I'm done. I'm not following you. Like, just this morning, I read like 2 tweets. I'm dying to get back to these people. I'm dying to say my bit. One of them is around residential schools with Matthew Aldridge, and the other one is about compassion in assessment and evaluation. And I'm just like itching because I have so much I want to say. And that's why this is important to me, because these conversations are not happening at school. And there's no time at school. Like, at the end of the day, I leave because I need to get home to do my home life stuff.
Yep.
So, the other day I felt bad because it was one of those days where I told my wife I'll be leaving school at 4:15. So that gives me 30 minutes after the bell rings to tie up some loose ends, make sure I'm good to go for the next day. What happened was, at around 4:10, my colleague came in and needed to talk to me about a couple of things. Well, I didn't end up leaving school till like 4:35. So, get to the car, send the message, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late. I'll be home soon." I get home, and again, "Sorry I'm late, but this is what happened. So and so came in, needed to talk about a couple of things." And it was one of those moments where I didn't have to be home for anything in particular. I just said that this is the range that I'd be home, and this person needed to chat. So we chatted. Um, but like, I can't do that every day. I won't do that every day. And these conversations are not going to come up. Nobody's going to walk in my room and say, "Hey, you ever consider compassion with your assessment and your evaluation?" It's just not going to happen. Or someone walks in, "Hey, residential schools, you think that they learn numeracy the same way that the white kids learn numeracy in the regular schools? What do you think?" I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 no. Send me a tweet and I'll hit you up tonight when my son's on the ice, or when I'm laying in bed getting ready to go to sleep. I'll respond and I'll have thought about it." So, I mean, you do what you're gonna do. It just didn't fit with the Clough I know. And like, I know that you left Twitter because you were not feeling so hot about it, and then you came back, and you've come back with, dare I say, more of an authenticity, even though that sounds weird because I felt like you were authentic before. But you've come back raring for conversations that will stir you and get you thinking. And so for me to see that, I was just like, what's he doing? What's anybody doing with the canned response? If you're playing around with if then that, that's one thing. But I don't know, Chris. It just didn't fit. And I said something to you, because why wouldn't I? I didn't lie to you that time. But don't worry, I'll find a way to lie to you again. I'll just throw that in there. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. But if we could move on, I mean, I'll let you have the final word on this. Let me know what you think. But I would love to talk about habits at school and what I experienced this week as I was trying different things that we had talked about on the podcast last week.
Yeah, I'm all in. I'm all in. Go for it. Transition us.
Okay, so last week on the podcast, because I know every week we probably get new listeners, so they're not in the loop on what happened the week before. But so to all
Previously on DeCodEd podcast.
the 1,000 new listeners listening today, let me fill you in quickly. Last weekend, Chris and I were talking about habits at school, how we park in the same spot, how we eat in the same seat in the staff room, and the comfort that it brings us. So I think Chris and I agreed that we would try to mix up our habits a little bit and just get a feeling of what's going on, how it worked. Well, the parking thing. So Monday, I go into work. I had a field trip, so there was going to be no lunchroom experiment, but I did mess around a little bit with the parking space, and I have to tell you, it messed with my mind. It really did because I had to consider certain things. Like at the end of the day, when I get in my car, I like to just drive away, which means that I'm in a spot that allows me to pull out and just go. But that was my comfort zone, so I decided to do something a little bit different. So I parked in another spot and in a way that would not allow me to leave as effectively, easily as I would like. And I have to tell you, it felt really weird. So I pull into the spot, and then I literally considered. I thought, I'm not doing this. I'll find another way to enter out of my comfort zone. I don't need to do this, but I did it anyway. So I parked the car, got out, and walked into the building. That was Monday. I'm not going to give you a play-by-play of each day, but I will tell you that from Tuesday to Friday, what I decided to do was I decided that I was going to walk into the staff room and I was going to sit at a table that had nobody at it, or it would be the table with the least amount of people at it. That was the plan. So this is how it went. I came in and there are four big tables, and at one table nobody was sitting there. So I sat there. And the first thing I thought is, I wonder if people are wondering why I didn't sit with them. And I wonder if anybody cares why I'm sitting alone. These are the thoughts that I was having. Take out my lunch, and there was a little bit of like cross table chatter. Somebody said something to me, I responded, and I just kept going. And then people started coming into the room, and nobody was sitting with me. They'd walk in, and they'd walk right past my table, and they'd go to the table to my right, or they go to the table in front of me, or they go to the table that was, you know, northeast of me, but they wouldn't sit with me. So then I started thinking, oh, like why aren't people sitting with me? Is it because they don't like me? Is it because that their good friends are sitting at that table over there? Um, did they even see me? Or did they just kind of walk in beeline right to their table? So these are the things I'm thinking, and it's safe to say I wasn't feeling pretty good at that moment. And as I was telling you in the on ramp, there was a dichotomy in my mind of the self talk, like, oh my god, like, do you have any friends here? And then the other side was, Roland, wake up, like, people have their habits and their routines. Just because you break yours doesn't mean that they're going to break theirs. They're just coming in and doing what is comfortable to them. So somebody eventually came and sat with me, but that person enjoys talking to me. Like, that person is my ESL teacher. She works with me. She's in my room. She works with my kids. So maybe when she walked in, her comfort zone was, oh, I see Roland. I talked to Roland. I'm going to sit down with Roland. I don't know. I didn't ask her. The funny thing is that day after day, as I did this, my mindset didn't change. I sit down, the same thing. Do people not like me? And then there's that goes off in its own direction. I have to realize it's okay if people don't like me. And then I have to think, well, am I at work? Like, am I there to make friends and have people like me, or am I there like to work, to work with the students and to earn my money and to go home and do what's important to me here? And that was tough. To like, I'm not lying to you right now. That was tough. It's hard to sit in a staff room and have nobody come and sit with you. It just is. And now I have a new awareness of, like, I'm quite aware now that when I walk into the room and I see an occasional teacher sitting at a table all by themselves, chances are they might be thinking the same thing. Is anybody going to sit with me today? Is anybody going to talk to me and ask me how I'm doing? Does anybody care? And some people will automatically say, like, well, who cares? Well, it plays with your mind. And if it's playing with my mind, it's going to be playing with other people's mind. And I work there full time. And I see people in the hall and they're friendly to me and they talk to me. Do they like me? I don't know. I don't know. And I think I'm a little bit sad that they might not, but I also think I'm going to get over it. And even if I don't get over it, I will block it and I will move forward. So that was my experience.
That's a good one. And that actually that connects with my experience of playing with habits as well, especially on the self-talk and the sort of like looking at what was sort of the success criteria of habit changing or habit analysis. I don't even have a really great term because we're like playing with habits right now, right? And falling into a reflective sort of stance as to what's the implication, what's the inconvenience of changing habits, what's the implication of changing habits, and what's the long-term like benefit. You know, you kind of get caught in this loop is where I got caught this week. So actually a little bit in the last 2 weeks. So one of the things that I found myself doing, so I was doing something similar with the parking, and not only where I parked, sometimes I would pull right in, sometimes I would back in, and realizing that it's creating conditions for the next. This is what I kind of thought about. And I thought about, which I didn't realize so much, but I started by the end of the week to think about how did the steps that I took this morning when I drove in at the beginning of my day create the context at the end of the day. So how are those things connected? And, you know, you have a flag post in the morning of putting your car in a parking spot, and then you have the other flag post at the end of the day. Like there's no thinking about that decision throughout the day. I wasn't considering once I walked in the door. Heck, once I did the doot doot on my car, I'm no longer thinking about the why, the how, the where, the what of where I put my car. My mind shifts into the next, which is work. Now I'm thinking about getting my classroom, taking my, everything that kind of just, the other list that just kind of goes, kind of flips in. So first bit that occurred to me was, because it's a really nice bell to bell, it's a really nice package of time to have a manageable distance between action and reaction. This is what it would occur to me. So you park the car at 7:30 a.m. You don't go back to your car till 4 p.m., whatever it is, 3:30 p.m. And there's this chunk of time within there, the 7 hours, 8 hours, where you are not thinking at all about that decision. You only return to the decision at the end of the day. As I returned to that, where I parked at the end of the day, I had several different moments that got me thinking. Quite a few times I walked out the wrong door of the school. Now, here's my thought. It was only wrong in relation to me calling it out as wrong. My pattern of behavior has very quickly grooved that I walk in the front door of the school and I walk out the front door of the school. It's my path. Heck, I even tend to walk in the exact same door. I think there's 8 doors that you can kind of open up on the front. Or maybe it's 6, three double doors. Maybe there's only 4. I'm entering always on the right-hand side. Now, I don't have a justification other than that's the door that when I turn right and I walk into the school that leads, it's the most expeditious path by 4 feet as I make a right-hand turn to go to my classroom. So I'm wall hugging, going down to my classroom. Several times I walked out not only the front door, which I wasn't parked near the front door this week, but I also walked out a door kind of inadvertently where I was parked the day before. So it was the wrong door because that was where I parked yesterday, which was like at the back of the school. But another day I parked at the front of the school. So there were several what could be perceived as mistakes, or mistake's the wrong word, but there were several moments where I was really aware that I had changed my habits. And this leads me to the second part of this. So making the mistakes, if I could call it that, mistakes isn't a good word. In that moment, though, I was aware of my patterning and grooving. I was hyper aware of my habits because I'm sitting there thinking to myself, my car's not here. Oh, yeah, it's on the other side of the school. And by the end of the week, so you get to the pattern analysis, clear evidence of pattern analysis. And yes, habits do create behaviors and you just get locked into it, which led me to the third part is what I said to myself directly at that point. Initially, I chastised myself for making a mistake. Yeah, I did something wrong. Even to call it a mistake is why I'm challenged by that language. The fact that I walked out a door where my car wasn't, I really had to push myself to not look at that as a mistake. If I blow that up, I think about all of the things that I've tried to do to improve my life as a dad, as a father, as a friend, and you test drive a new part of yourself, and you hit that first disconnection of whatever you set in motion didn't really match up with where you land. Like somehow, like, why did I do that? Why did I bother? What's the point of this if it's just gonna, if I'm gonna walk out the wrong door again, right? I'm not arriving at my car where it should be. I became hyper aware of how I talked to myself in that moment, that I didn't initially call it out as a mistake. It was learning. This was me forcibly confronting my habits. And now this is a simple one. This is just your car. But here's a concrete example of what can happen when you sort of change your habits. So there are other things that sort of happen. So we had an incident at the school, and it created one of the parking lots wasn't open. It was closed off. Now in that parking lot there were cars, both staff and students. That was one of the that was one of the parking lots I was going to park in that day, and I didn't. Now, the fact that I wasn't in the lot was random. It was kind of random because each day as I would pull in, there's two driveways to go in. I would only decide where I was going to park as I pulled up. What felt like a good place to park. And I didn't have any feelings either way, but I had more of a compulsion to park in one spot over the back parking lot. But at the end of the day, when other individuals had to wait to get their car out of the parking lot, I was able to leave. What made this interesting to me is that where I parked that day was almost the farthest corner of the parking lot on the opposite side of the school. A mindset that I would have had before is, why would you ever want to park there? It's so far from the doors. Yet that day, I was a hero in my world. I was able to like drive and leave. So I had to stop there for a moment and say, there's some value in messing with your habits because you could potentially find some gold out of that, like some treasure. I think what this has also brought to mind for me is some of the fear that sort of comes out of changing the habits. And what I mean by this is that I'm not at the space of grand fear, like somehow I'm losing it or losing myself. But there is a little bit of trepidation to really, really explore what it is that's driving my decision-making for some of the things that are habitual. Because the emotional state that I was in when I realized at the end of the day, and it triggered something emotional in me, anxiety, nervousness, what have you done over a parked car? What if it was something important? And you sort of challenge yourself to push yourself to try changing something new or something big. And you arrive at that other side and you say to yourself, this didn't turn out how I planned. And now it's really uncomfortable. And I've just gotten a little bit of just a wee taste of that this week. So I don't know where I push forward out of this one, but I want to keep playing. I want to keep playing with this because I do think that there's some habits that are good for maintaining the structure of my day so that I can be connected and efficient and get the work done that's necessary for others. We have deliverables. We have things that we have to get done for others, in family as well, for self. But it's raised a hunger that I would like to play with it. Like I would like to kind of play with a method to challenge and it's not thinking, it's actioning, to challenge my actioning. But I become worried that I may not have the courage to push through the work when I realize there's something that I really do want to change, something that really is important. And I'll tell you flat out, there are things right now, even as I say this, I'm like, Clough, you got to get on that. Like, get that one done. So it messed with my mind. It really messed with my mind this week. What are you thinking?
I'm just appreciative of your position. It's good to hear your thoughts on it as you talk about, you know, having habits that help you, that are necessary to get you to where you need to be. I agree with that 100%. I just think for me, there's an awareness now. When I walk in and I see the occasional teacher sitting by themselves, or the classroom teacher sitting by themselves, you know, I'm gonna think like, do I really need to go and sit with those people, or should I spend 10 minutes at that table just, hey, how are you? How's it going? To let them know, like, I see you. I'll talk to you. Now, again, I have to be, you know, I have to be fair to myself. There are some people that I don't like at work. Like, I know that. I don't necessarily get along with them, or we don't see eye to eye. I just don't want to spend my time with them. Um, which is even sad that I'm saying it, but hey, if I'm saying it, there are people there that don't want to spend any time with me. I'm not trying to be like doomsday. I'm just saying this is the way the world works, right? There are people at your work that you just don't want to talk to or don't get along with. Now, if they're sitting by themselves, then there's like a math going on in my head. You know, like knowing how it feels. Do I try to talk to them and have them really freak out because they're like, why is he talking to me? I know we don't get along. There's a whole it's so it can be so complicated. And I think I don't know. Hey, part of this podcast in our little description is sometimes we take stuff and we break it down and simplify it, and sometimes we
I
take
was already
stuff.
thinking of that. I'm like, wait, didn't we declare that that's kind of what we're going to do? Take simple
Yeah.
things and make them more complicated?
And the flip side, take complicated things and make them more simple. I just feel like
Yeah.
there's lots of layers, but I will feel something when I see those people, because I felt it for a week and it sucked. And normally you don't do that to yourself for a week, or you continue to do it. It becomes a habit, becomes a new habit, right? There's that fine line. When does it switch over? So I could probably own that table, that, like in prison, I could have that space to myself. People will walk in and say, that's where Roland sits. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. The next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to sit in other people's spots. And that's not me being a compassionate, kind person. That's just me wanting to see, will they call me on it? Will they be like, hey, why are you sitting in my seat? Or will they look at me and then be like discombobulated for lunch hour? I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Um, but interesting. I constantly, like, I don't know what it is. But I'm constantly looking for, I guess, new projects to consider, new things to think about. And I don't need more on my plate. I don't think anybody does, but those are the things worth putting on your plate.
So okay, and here's the self-talk. I'm just making sure I'm off mute there for a second. Here's the self-talk part. Is because I want to find the middle line of habit changing where it actually doesn't add more to my plate. So for instance, is it putting more on your plate to go and eat lunch in the lunchroom? And if that's like a no, I can eat in the lunchroom every once in a while. So then you're already in the space, which means you can kind of sit at whatever chair's available. Like that's the opportunity. That's the open opportunity. There's not actually anything more on your plate. When I pull into the parking lot in the morning, is there, you know, is it actually any more work to park at a door that isn't close to my classroom? Well, it's kind of like a kid yesterday said something to the effect of, this is the worst day of my life. And I said, so far. just adding that little chunk on the end. I said, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. And the kid's like, come on, Clef, like, stop. I'm like, well, I'm being quite serious. Like, so far is fine. But you don't get to say this is my, you know, the grand statement of this is the worst day of my life. You have not lived your life. You're not in a space to look back at a, you know, a fully robusted life of experiences and adventure. I actually don't know when I pull in the driveway. Sorry, all I know when I pull in the driveway is that if I park in the parking spot that's directly outside my classroom, that I can walk from my parking spot in a very efficient manner into the school. That's all I know. Yet as I pull in, I'm not appreciating or even thinking about the power of that. I'm already projecting to 3:30 or 4 o'clock, like somehow that's the best route for me to leave from. I have already had moments in this past little experiment where I actually am closer to another exit door, which is why I walked out random doors, because I was actually, I sort of, I was parked there yesterday. I'm not parked there today. I'm actually at the other side of the school today. So I don't actually even have any proof that where I'm going to be at the end of the day is where my car is. So I find it fascinating. Now I get it. On one hand, there is an element of, well, Clough, do harder work, like get back to that spot and organized. But there's stuff that comes up in between. I might be talking to a colleague. I might have to go in and connect with the principal. You know, as I leave one class to go to the other class, maybe I managed to make enough time to pack my whole backpack together so I could walk out a different door, a door that's closer to my exit class as opposed to my arrival class. So that's where I'm starting to play with that. How do I find that sweet spot where it actually isn't different work? It's just revealing my thinking to me. And just the last two bits on this is that I had people really concerned when they didn't see my car in the morning. And I may have mentioned this in the last podcast, but they would come in and they would see me at my desk and they're like, oh, you're here. I didn't see your car. And this is the second layer maybe of the habit changing that I'll observe next week, is how is it when I choose to change my habits? And this is, I think, when habits become socially connected. How do other people perceive and process my decision making? So what information am I getting back about people's emotional state, their sort of like just their awareness of me trying to change things? I think the third layer or fourth, whatever I'm at, is then how does their feedback impact me? So them sort of, because I actually really appreciated the one dude that said, I was a little worried. I didn't think you were here today. I appreciated that. I thought that he's demonstrating some care and concern because my car wasn't there. It was also ironic because, you know, I unintentionally activated an emotional response just by not having my car where someone else expected it to be. In this case, it was compassionate and supportive. I know that other habits that I have do not elicit that response in people. It's a little more negative. Not negative, not as compassionate, let's say. So, and I have done that thing in parking in other people's spots intentionally. I've done it.
What about sitting in their seat in the staff room that you
done that too?
Done that too.
I actually started doing that in class, where I would we would talk about students and we would talk about why we sort of position ourselves in the class for learning and stuff like that. And I would in one semester, students would come in, I'd be sitting in someone's seat in the classroom. That opened up a really interesting discussion, because then they said, well, could I sit at your desk? Mm. So you sort of distribute some of the possibility there. So, and in this case, it was yes, because it was a desk. It wasn't, you know, it was a chair and a desk. I'm like, if you want to. And the look on the kid's face, really? I can sit in your chair? I'm like, well, understand, I didn't bring that chair with me. That's the one that is just, it happens to be at the front of the room. Our understanding of school is that's where the power holder, aka the teacher, should be. You want a piece of the power? Go sit in the nice chair. So.
Well, I think we've come to the end, because I know your boy has sports.
3-point throw. That's what he's working on right now. We only have a few sessions left, so he's trying to, he wants to be able to nail that 3-point shot. So it's cool to watch.
Sounds like a good goal.
It is. It is a good goal.
Okay, Chris. Well, have a good week.
You too, man. I hope you feel better. I wish you well. I can hear it in your voice here.
Oh, this is, yeah, for our new listeners. Previously on DeCodEd Season 2 and Season 1, you get to see me at around this time of the year where I've got my big box of Kleenex, and thank God that I'm a ninja with the mute button, because you really don't want to hear me blowing my nose. But yeah, it happened last year.
That is true. That is true.
This year, yeah.
You know what is going to happen to me? I shared with you the story that one of my students, I got a full sneeze in my face.
Yes, that's so disgusting, man.
Disgusting. It happens. It happens. So it's I did not move fast enough.
Come down to elementary sometime and just have them pick their nose and wipe it on you.
Oh, dude, I have such deep respect for the stickiness, the snottiness, and the juiciness that elementary teachers are confronted with on a day-to-day basis in their pursuit of compassionate teaching. So,
okay, well, we'll see you next week, I hope.
Yeah, for sure, man. Take care of yourself.
You too. See ya.